Tough loss for Syracuse, but you know what? I'm actually quite encouraged after it.
You are Locked On Syracuse, your daily podcast on the Syracuse Orange. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, everyone, and welcome into Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and thank you for making us your first listen of every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day, and we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And folks, this is another post-game reaction podcast. Syracuse basketball lost their first game of the season, 70-66 to Texas. It was a close one. We're going to break down the game from start to finish. There's one really big issue for Syracuse, and if you're watching this podcast, you can see it in the second bullet point: free throws. But you know what, guys? That was about as encouraging of a loss as you can have. There are no such thing as a moral victory in sports. But you know what? They could have given up. They could have packed it in. They're down by 16 points in the second half to a team that is fringe top 25 in Texas. They're most likely going to go to the NCAA tournament. They have more talent than Syracuse, you think, right? And the Orange battled back. At times they had the lead in the second half, but they just fell short. They ran out of gas, and they lose 70-66. So it's an encouraging road ahead later on in the podcast. Before we break down the action, this podcast is brought to you by FanDuel. You can start the season with a big return on FanDuel. New customers can place a $5 bet, and you'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. Visit FanDuel.com to get started. So in this game, particularly, this was just a tale of two halves. The first half, I can summarize it well for you. Texas got everything it wanted on offense. Everything. They wanted to hit an outside shot, they could hit an outside shot. If they wanted to go down low, they could go down low. Syracuse would try playing man, they tried playing zone. Nothing really worked. Now, the zone did work a little bit better because at least they would prevent the blow-bys, but still, Texas was moving the ball nicely, getting open looks. Tre Johnson, especially in the first half, was just absolutely ridiculous. He had a play where he spun around after catching a pass and went right into the chest of Eddie Lampkin and hit a layup. I mean, it was ridiculous. They started this game, Syracuse that is, they started this game down 9-0 very early on. And it felt like through the first 25-ish minutes of this game that they were going to get boat raced. At one point, they were trailing by 16. It wasn't looking good, and it felt like all of the concerns that we had for this team were coming to fruition. In the first three games for Syracuse basketball, if you have been following along this season, you know this by now, but if this was maybe the first game that you tuned into because, it was on ESPN, they're playing Texas, it's a big-time matchup. First time they played since the 2003 Final Four, by the way. The first three games for Syracuse basketball, even though they won them, they did not look very good, okay? And they were not playing against the greatest competition in the world, all right? It wasn't Duke, Kentucky, and UConn to start. It was Lemoyne, Colgate, and Youngstown State, and they barely squeaked by those teams. Youngstown State was in double overtime. And all of a sudden, once again, well, now you don't play well against a team that's far better than those teams. You're down by 16 points in the second half to Texas. We're not going to be very good this year. So I thought, so maybe most of you guys thought. And I don't blame you for thinking that. But in the second half, it's like a light bulb went off. It's like they said, welcome to basketball. Welcome to the 2024-25 college basketball season, Syracuse. Like, welcome. Finally, this was the team that I thought we were going to see. It does suck that they ultimately lost. And they made some mistakes at the end. There was an inbound play with 48 seconds left in the game. Carlos is standing on the baseline. He's the one inbounding. And it's not his fault, right? Jaquan Carlos has not had the greatest start to his Syracuse tenure. He's a Hofstra transfer. He's a senior. He has not had the greatest start. He's been expected to be a starting point guard. But this play was not on him. He was standing on the baseline to the right of the basket, and he tries to throw it cross court to the corner. And at first glance, it appeared like he just threw the ball away. But then you can see after the turnover, and it was a killer turnover, that he was kind of confused. And I was like, well, why is he confused on this? And Jay Williams, who was the color commentator on the broadcast, pointed out that it's actually on Chris Bell. And he's 100% right. The turnover was on Chris Bell because Chris Bell, if he keeps going to the corner, he's going to get an open three. And you want Chris Bell to shoot an open three. There's 48 seconds left in the game. Syracuse is down by 3 points. If he runs to the corner there and catches that inbound ball, who knows what happens? Maybe he hits that three. I've seen him hit that three a million times. But he didn't. He stopped running. He cut himself off on the right wing, and the ball goes out of bounds. Texas takes over. And to Texas's credit, they hit their free throws when they had to. We'll get to free throw shooting in the next segment because that's really the biggest issue with Syracuse basketball right now. But that inbound play, I felt like was the deciding point of the game. And it's unfortunate that Carlos is going to be the one that gets credited with the turnover, but it was on Chris Bell. They made a mistake. It happens. It sucks it happened then. But that was the big point of the game. But overall, I'm really impressed. There was a moment where everything changed. It was around the 14, 15-minute mark, I want to say, of the second half. They're down by 13 points. And Jaquan Carlos hits Eddie Lampkin at the top of the key for an open jumper, and Lampkin banks it in. He didn't call bank. You can tell he didn't call bank because he's running back down the floor on defense and he's got his tongue out. But he hits that shot to make it, I think, 50-39. It was an 11-point game, and I thought at the moment that it was going to be kind of like a footnote. Like, it wasn't going to matter, and Syracuse was still going to lose the game. And they did, but obviously they had a big comeback. And then on back-to-back defensive possessions, after that, they pressure the ball up high near the three-point line, and it causes Texas to have 2 turnovers. Both were fouls, I want to say. I want to say both were fouls. And Eddie Lampkin that is when he just took off, and he took over this game, getting down low. He went on a personal, I think, 7-0 run, including that bank jumper. And that's what got Syracuse really going, because it made it 50-44 with 13:36 left. A 6-point game with 13:36 to go you're right there. You're right in the game. At one point, you thought they were going to get blown out, but all of a sudden, hey, and Eddie Lampkin wasn't just doing it on offense. He was doing it on defense. There was a moment in that second half where he's running all over the place on defense, guarding guys on the perimeter. And Eddie Lampkin is not known for being the best defender. I think he played outstanding defense tonight. I think he played outstanding defense. It's unfortunate that they couldn't cap it off. They did take the lead a number of times after that. And they kind of went back and forth with Texas. You can tell that Texas was maybe a little bit tight with the ball. Tre Johnson, their star freshman, got cold in the second half. He heated up late, especially with the free throw shooting. But you know what? It happens. I mean, Autry was playing the wheels off Jyare Davis and Eddie Lampkin. Those two had terrific games down low. I mean, that's your bread and butter right there. The front court for Syracuse basketball, you got to be encouraged. I'll talk about that later on in the show. He played the wheels off those guys. Chris Bell played a lot. Didn't have his best game again tonight. Had that mistake at the end. Overall, it really came down to that baseline play when they're down by 3 points with 48 seconds left. That's what it came down to. And it was a tough mistake. It happens. Am I upset that they lost? Yes, because there are no moral victories, as I said off the top. But I'm not mad, and I'm not disappointed. In fact, I feel better about this game than I have after any of the previous 3 games. I kind of faked it in the Youngstown State recap because of the Kyan Anthony announcement the night before, which, by the way, he was in the building with Carmelo. Pretty good showing, especially with 15 minutes onward. Overall, yeah, they lost. It's tough. I'm sure some people will be upset by it. I'm upset that they lost, but you know what? That's about as competitive as you can possibly be with a very good team on a neutral site. Later on in the podcast, we'll talk about the road ahead and stuff to look forward to. But first, we really got to talk about the issue with Syracuse basketball through 4 games. The free throw shooting. It's horrific. Missing someone this holiday season and want them to be a part of your festivities from afar. Do your loved ones live far away but wish they could, be close to you? Well, we've got the perfect gift for you. Stylight Frame is the touchscreen digital photo frame your whole family will love. Upload thousands of photos with your phone and watch them appear in seconds. It's so easy to use. The setup takes about 60 seconds. It's seamless sharing. You can invite friends and family to easily share photos via the free Stylight mobile app or email. No account or subscription required. You can add new photos straight from your phone from anywhere. It only takes a tap on your phone to send new photos to a frame across the country. It's the fastest, easiest way to keep loved ones in the loop. They'll feel so much more connected to you. And now, as a special limited time offer for our listeners, at $20 off your purchase of Stylight Frame when you go to stylightframe.com/college. That's SKYLIGHTFRAME.com/college. Get $20 off your new purchase at stylightframe.com/college. Get ready to tackle the NFL action with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because right now new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. The FanDuel Sportsbook app gives you everything you need to place live bets on the NFL all in one place. So when you get a hunch in the middle of a game, you can check out the latest stats, view live play-by-play, and so much more on the same page where you place your bets. Let's talk about Syracuse football for a moment. I think at times during this game, particularly early, I thought, man, we're going to have to milk football out for the rest of this season. But you know what? Syracuse basketball might be pretty good now. We'll get to that later. But let's talk Syracuse football. They are a 10.5-point favorite against UConn on Saturday. Money line's at -360, and Syracuse football just pulled off an upset win. Now it's time to see how they're going to handle being a favorite against a team that they should probably beat at home, going for their 8th win of the season. If you want to bet it, just visit FanDuel.com to join today. You'll get started with $150 in bonus bets if you win your first $5 bet. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer, and on today's post-game reaction show, we are going over Syracuse basketball's 70-66 loss to Texas tonight. It was a tough one. Syracuse basketball, a 1-point trail by 16 points in the second half, but they rallied back, took the lead at times, but ultimately fell short. There's a big reason why they fell short. It wasn't the defense. In fact, the defense, especially in the second half, they really ratcheted up the intensity. They looked tougher. It was so much better. It's not the defense. The defense, for once, is not the culprit. But there's one glaring issue for this team, and it wasn't just this game. It has now been 4 games, and we have to talk about it. Syracuse is not hitting their free throws. They're not hitting their free throws. It's that simple. I'm going to give you guys a lot of numbers, okay? But honestly, that's what you need to know. That's the biggest issue. They are not hitting their free throws. Syracuse basketball in this game at the free throw line. You ready for this? 9 of 18. They missed 9 free throws in 18 attempts. That's 50%. They lost this game by 4 points. Texas, on the other hand, was 12 of 14 from the free throw line. That's pretty good. That's hitting your free throws. That's why they lost. How about turnovers? You want to talk about turnovers? Both were tied at 11. Points off turnovers. 16 for Texas, 14 for Syracuse. Texas narrowly out-rebounded Syracuse 35-30. There were moments in the second half where they couldn't box out Weaver, particularly late for whatever reason. Weaver is very athletic. He could get up there and jump. Shout out to him for Texas. but it's free throws. That's the problem. It's been the problem through 4 games. There was a minute sequence in the second half where Jyare Davis, Syracuse is in the double bonus, and Jyare Davis gets fouled twice in a row. He goes 1 for 4 at the free throw line. Not good. It's a close game already. And he goes 1 for 4 at the free throw line. That can't happen. I'm sorry. Jyare Davis played such a great game, so I hate to pick on him, but that was a sequence that I wrote down saying 1 of 4 in that situation, you can't cut it. At least go 3 for 4. Okay, I'll take 75% there on back-to-back free throw attempts. He goes 1 for 4. And the biggest one, and I'm sorry, but it was Jaquan Carlos. We talked about the turnover that he had, but it wasn't his fault. That was on Chris Bell. Well, Syracuse basketball, after that turnover, Texas hits their free throws. They go up 68-63. Okay, then for Syracuse, to their credit, J.J. Starling races down the floor. He gets a floater to drop. And with 9 seconds left, or there was a little bit more than 9 seconds left with, but the point being is that he hits a shot, he hits a 2, and now it's 68-65 Texas. So what you need to do in that situation, obviously, you're the team on defense. You have to try for the steal, and if you can't get the steal, you got to foul. Syracuse gets the steal. They get the steal. And with 9 seconds left, Jaquan Carlos is fouled. Now, he's fouled, not shooting. It's on the floor. And Syracuse is in the bonus. They're in the double bonus anyway. So he's going to get 2 free throw attempts. But he only makes 1 of 2. Why is that an issue? Because they're down by 3 points. He cuts it to a 2-point game. Yeah, that's nice. He at least made 1. But there's 9 seconds left. If Texas can inbound the ball and hit their 2 free throws, the game is over. And that's exactly what happened. It's exactly what happened. If he goes 2 for 2 there, no matter what happens, Syracuse will have a chance to tie at the end of regulation. But they didn't, because Jaquan Carlos went 1 for 2 in that situation. It can't happen. Other free throw struggles in this team. The other thing that's confusing about this is something that I wrote down. I just singled out Jyare Davis and Jaquan Carlos, but don't worry, pretty much everyone is at fault right now with free throw shooting. The thing that's perplexing about this is that Jyare Davis was 81% at the free throw line last year at Delaware. He was 81%, and in this game, he was 3 of 6. Jaquan Carlos was 89% at Hofstra. Do you know how good 89% is? 89% at the free throw line. And in this game, he goes 1 for 2, and he's like 50% through 4 games. Guys, the free throw line doesn't change from mid-major to major. It's the free throw line. It hasn't changed, and they just missed their free throws. I don't know what to tell you. It's perplexing. Syracuse at one point against Youngstown State could have iced the game in the first overtime, but Jaquan Carlos missed 2 free throws in a row. Let's go over the percentages now through the first 4 games. I told you Texas was 9 of 18 at the free throw line. That's not very good. How about the season opener against Lemoyne? 20 of 31. That's 65%. Not good. Colgate, second game of the season. 4 of 8 from the free throw line. Not good. That's 50%. 25 of 38 against Youngstown State. That's 66%. That is the best percentage they've had through 4 games, is 66% at the free throw line. That can't happen. And sorry to my younger listeners, you might not know this fact, but Syracuse basketball should probably have another national championship on their ledger. They probably should. They should. That's all I'm going to say. My older audience, they know what I'm talking about. 1987. Free throws matter. If you're a younger Syracuse fan, after you're done watching or listening to this podcast, you can look it up. For my older audience out there, I am so sorry I jarred that memory, but you know what? It's to demonstrate the fact that we have seen with Syracuse basketball, free throws kill them at the worst possible time. So the main negative, which I guess if you're going to think about negatives, it's not a bad negative to have, but eventually got to correct it because you can be bad on offense, bad on defense. I don't know. They haven't been shooting the ball well from three, but Chris Bell, you got to figure eventually he's going to get hot. The free throw shooting, that's the biggest issue right now with the team. And I don't really have any analysis that I can give behind that. I don't. If Syracuse was like struggling on offense, right? Particularly in the first half, they were struggling on offense. Why were they struggling on offense? Well, they kept settling for 3-pointers. They weren't moving a lot on offense. It was a lot of stagnation, and they made Texas's perimeter defenders look amazing. But in the second half, they corrected it by playing down low with Eddie Lampkin and Jyare Davis. They corrected it. See, that's like an adjustment you can make. That's analysis that we can talk about. With free throws, I don't know, man. You got to hit them. You're at the free throw line. There are free points. Nobody's guarding you. You got to hit them. That's my lecture about free throw shooting for you guys. And I think it's the number one culprit why Syracuse lost this game. They lost 70-66 to a very good Texas team on a neutral site, which, by the way, wasn't really neutral. There were a lot more Syracuse fans in the building from what I could tell. A lot more. I know a ton of people that went to the game. But that was the reason. You go 9 of 18 from the free throw line. Texas goes, they go 86% at the free throw line, 12 of 14. There you have it. That's why Texas won. It came down to that. So they're going to have to correct it going forward. That's the bottom line. Okay, so I've given you guys a little bit of a summary of the game. I told you guys that free throws certainly matter. Shout out to Brent Axe from Syracuse.com, former professor of mine, Brent Axe. Coming up, while I just went on a little bit of a tangent, a little bit of a tirade on free throw shooting, I'm still encouraged. So let's talk about the road ahead for Syracuse basketball. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. Prize Picks is the best way to get action on sports in over 30 states, including states like California, Florida, Georgia, and Texas. Texas right now after that loss. Right? Prize Picks offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, Prize Picks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Think Justin Jefferson will get more than like 83.5 yards next week. Lamar Jackson passing more than 1.5 touchdowns. Cook up hot takes with your friends and win real money this football season when you and your crew run your game on Prize Picks. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Download the app today and use code LOCKEDONCollege to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. We are breaking down Syracuse basketball's close loss to Texas tonight, 70-66 on a neutral site. First game of the Legends Classic does not go the Orange's way, but you know what? Folks, I'm here to tell you right now, and I really alluded to it in the first segment because the last segment was where I gave you the negative. They're not shooting free throws well. But in the first segment, I told you guys that I'm encouraged, and once again, I'm going to double down on that take. I liked the fight that Syracuse showed in this game. They could have very easily have given up. They could have. They were down 16 in the second half to a team that's really good. You're supposed to lose. Might as well head back to the locker room and, I don't know, take a shower, eat some popcorn, and maybe watch the other game coming out after you, right? Texas Tech is going to play St. Joe's in a matter of moments. Could have done that, but no, they didn't do that. They kept playing. And they played physical. They were tough. They were tough in this one. And I got to tell you, I'm assuming that St. Joe's is going to lose to Texas Tech. I'm assuming that's going to happen. I am pretty confident that they're going to be able to take on St. Joe's. I was confident going into the tournament that they can beat them. And I'm even more confident after this game. I really am. I think the big thing that I can take away from this, and maybe you can take away from it too, maybe you disagree with me on it, but that's okay. This is the Syracuse basketball team that can break the drought. This is the Syracuse basketball team that can make the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2021. I believe that after watching this game. I do. I think you got to be really encouraged by the front court. The front court is the clear strength of the team. Jyare Davis looks like a man amongst boys at times. Eddie Lampkin, I thought he was going to be good. He is an animal out there, and he provides so much energy and his effort too, and he's nursing a bad back. Donnie Freeman, at times when he plays, he didn't play a lot in this game, and the reason why he didn't play a lot is because Autry found a formula. He found a lineup. He's like, oh, Eddie Lampkin, Jyare Davis, that works. He rode them in the second half. Kind of like how last game he rolled with Donnie Freeman against Youngstown State because Donnie had it going and Jyare didn't. But the point being is that they have options in the front court. We even saw Naheem McLeod play in the first few minutes of this game. Texas coming into this one, 27th in KenPom. Syracuse basketball was outside the top 100 in KenPom. And they lost by 4 points. I'm encouraged also because think about last season. For those that remember last season, Syracuse basketball, when they won games, with the exception of like Chaminade and the one game they had against Oregon when Oregon had no players, everyone was hurt for Oregon in that one. With the exception of like those two games, they didn't blow anyone out. Never did. And it's like the same thing this season. In all three of their wins, they've been squeakers. They really don't blow anybody out. And that was the same thing last season. But also in Syracuse's losses. In Syracuse's losses last year, they lost like 12 games, I think, if my memory serves correctly. Only 2 of them were within double digits. They were either going to win close or they were going to get annihilated. And it like didn't matter who they played. So they lost close tonight. They lost a semi back and forth game against a really good Texas team. A Texas team that's going to probably make the NCAA tournament. They're pretty good. And when you talk about the road ahead and you look at the schedule, I feel confident that assuming that St. Joe's loses, that Syracuse is going to beat St. Joe's. And for tomorrow morning, I think I'll do a mini preview. I'm not going to guarantee it, but I think I'll do it. I feel confident against St. Joe's. I don't know how they're going to play against Cornell. I have no idea. That's the next one after that. That's Wednesday, December 27th. The reason why I say I have no idea is because is this a case of Syracuse plays up to their competition, but also down to their competition? I don't know. But if they play like they did tonight, particularly in the final 15 minutes of this game against Cornell, they're going to beat them by 30. How about that for you? Then they have a really, really challenging game, SEC ACC Challenge on December 3rd. Sorry, the Cornell game is November 27th, not December, November 27th. But on December 3rd, they go to Texas. I can't speak today. They go to Tennessee, a really, really good Tennessee team that's currently 11th in the country. Look, do I think that Syracuse is going to beat Tennessee in a true road game? No, I don't. I'll go on record saying I don't think they're going to win. But do I think they can be at least competitive? Absolutely. And that was not a guarantee heading into at least this game. Or I wasn't feeling that way heading into this game. I was hoping that they could do that before the season. But honestly, I had that written off as like maybe that's their like 20-point loss this year. It still could be. But who knows? Maybe they can play well at Tennessee and keep it close. Because you lose by 4 to 10. You lose by 4 to Texas. Losing by 4 to Texas. This is the warp kind of thing of college basketball. Losing by 4 to Texas is almost I think it actually is. It's better than beating Youngstown State in double overtime. Yeah, it's a loss. And obviously you'd rather win, but that's just how the metrics work. So they're going to like Syracuse. I imagine that Syracuse is really going to go up in the advanced metrics after this one. So overall, I'm pretty encouraged. I like the front court. I think the backcourt still has some issues, but you know what? it might be good enough. I like what Lucas Taylor showed today. He showed a lot of fight. He had that double tech with Tre Johnson in the second half, which really shouldn't have been teched for, but I like the fight that he showed. Good defender. They played good defense. This is about as encouraging of a loss as you were going to get. It sucks that they did lose, but I am pretty encouraged by it. Thank you for making Locked On Syracuse your first listen today. And for your second listen, you can check out the Locked On ACC podcast. Alex Donald and Kenton Gibbs, they keep it real, and they bring you the truth about where your favorite ACC team stands within the conference. Find Locked On ACC on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Folks, Syracuse basketball loses a tough one, but it's okay. They're going to play tomorrow against the loser of Texas Tech and St. Joe's. It's going to be a 7 o'clock game once again because they lost. But you know what? It's an encouraging one for me. Leave your comments in the comment section below, your thoughts on this game. This is Locked On Syracuse. I'm Jackson Holzer. Thank you all so much for watching. Thank you all so much for listening. If you like this video, click that like button. If you really liked it, subscribe to the channel. Turn on those notifications so you know right away when I am dropping the next podcast. Everyone, take care.